Propaganda, an asset which, if utilized effectively, could become the deadliest weapon during World War I. Propaganda is information, especially on a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Many forms of propaganda were created with the sole purpose to increase support in the war, whether it to be in a form of donations, food, bonds, or mere approval of citizens at the home front. Propaganda was incorporated on a worldwide scale and therefore influenced citizens worldwide, specifically on the views they had on the ongoing World War. The citizens played a major role in the outcomes of the war by supporting soldiers and their home country with encouragements, purchases, donations, and support dependent on the effectiveness of the propaganda. Propaganda was essential to the war. It motivated soldiers and people back home. It was a method of how countries obtained currency to fund missions. The key purpose was to gain funds, persuade citizens, and motivate their home country. The major countries in the World War I which utilized propaganda were Germany, France, USA, Russia, Ottoman Empire, Italy, Belgium, Austria-Hungary, and Great Britain. All these countries used propaganda to degrade rival or enemy nations as a method of persuasion and loyalty establishment. Governments during the First World War devoted massive resources and huge amounts of effort to producing material designed to shape opinions and actions internally. The efforts of the states to justify their actions and to build international support resulted in some of the most powerful propaganda ever produced. Nationalism, militarism, alliances, and the need to justify one's country's action became a more prominent reason to incorporate in propaganda. They also shaped attitudes toward propaganda itself in the years following the end of the war. Posters, so well designed and illustrated that people collected and displayed them in fine art galleries, possessed both visual appearance and ease of reproduction. They could be pasted on side of buildings, put in windows of homes, tacked up in workplaces, and resized to appear above cable car windows and magazines. They could easily be reprinted into a variety of languages. The styles of propaganda depended on culture, status quo, and language. As national propaganda became more well established, the people of World War I started to change their beliefs and viewpoints of the war in each zone and country. Support to other allied nations was encouraged, and depending on the meaning behind propaganda, it could lead to boosted support or tension. It manipulated the attitudes of the people on the home front. Beliefs on the home front ended up being completely different from the war, as propaganda twisted their minds of people at home. It caused them to think incorrectly about the war, such as war being morally correct and the fact that their country was fighting for a just reason.
In World War I, propaganda was influenced by nationality, the need for people to justify their actions, and to build international support. The nations were all trying to manipulate how the citizens were thinking in order to draw a fine line between who was an ally and who was the enemy. Propaganda was used to make citizens believe that the ongoing war was more tranquil than people thought, and that the war was going to be won easily with a minimum amount of casualties. Each country also utilized methods in order to convince citizens that what was done was justified. An additional example of the part propaganda played in national support can be seen during the Rape of Belgium. The Rape of Belgium was a historical event that greatly impacted the use and purpose of propaganda. The neutrality of Belgium had been guaranteed by the Treaty of London in 1839, which had been signed by Prussia. However, the German Schlieffen Plan required that the German armed forces violate Belgium in order to outflank the French army. Belgium refused to offer passage, and later on, German Chancellor Theobald von Bismarck dismissed the Treaty of 1839 as a scrap of paper. The German army invaded in a hostile manner. Over 6,000 Belgians were killed, 25,000 homes and other buildings, and 837 communities destroyed. 1.5 million Belgians, numbering to about 20% of the entire population, fled from the invading German army. Earlier examples were incorporated with symbols and hidden messages to convince the population to buy, support, or recruit. However, after the Rape of Belgium, many posters depicted messages about national unification and how allied countries could aid in supporting or re-establishing Belgium. Here, a poster from France depicts poor and hungry Belgians in need of food. They asked citizens to help the Belgians by donating. The U.S. also started to change the purpose of its propaganda. This poster reminds U.S. citizens to remember the suffering and unfortunate Rape of Belgium. It was also used as a promotional goal.
But as propaganda can unify nations, it can also divide them. Another purpose was to build resentment between nations in order to rally new soldiers with a burning passion to overcome these enemies. Military recruitment was also a goal for propaganda. Many posters were used to convince people although mostly men, to sign up for the war that they were guaranteed to win. Britain released this poster which showed a man pointing directly at the viewer. By manipulating the use of human nature, one might feel obligated to sign up, as the man makes the viewer feel special. The famous US poster with Uncle Sam was later developed, incorporating the same aspect. However, recruitment did not end at military service. Other services such as the Air Force and Navy were advertised. This poster somehow instills a sense of duty to a man. Seeing that a woman desires to join the Navy but cannot would cause one to rethink his decision and complete the honor that he was given.
Medical programs or medical assistance in war was also encouraged, although mostly by the U.S. Red Cross program. This poster tries to convince people to assist the French soldiers with medical supplies and clinical treatment. Some nations also realized that the people should continue to grow food for donations and supplies for soldiers, such as the French propaganda below.
Since war was costly and required money, some nations fell into debt, having placed all their wealth into the war. In an attempt to negate debts or continue having sufficient funds, war bonds and loans were advertised. These would remove money from circulation and thus help to control inflation. Propaganda was issued everywhere.
There were also miscellaneous types of propaganda. Countries sometimes released posters that would boost the mindset of the average soldier. By illustrating each soldier as a noble, powerful, and irreplaceable individual, a soldier would feel like an exclusive man, inspiring him to continue fighting for his country and citizens on the home front. In conclusion, propaganda was an effective asset that could turn the tide in the course of the war. If not for the uses of propaganda and its alluring appeal, many countries would have had a lower rate of recruitment, donations, and money. These factors contribute to many successes or failures in the war, ultimately leading to the end of World War I. If propaganda was not utilized, would the outcome of the war still become what it is now?